The purpose of this video is to demonstrate a number of decision models in a variety of disciplines. And what I'll do is I'll begin by showing each decision model with its first decision point. In this case, this is a statistics demo created by Lane Fisher and Ken Plummer. And we start with a high-level question. Is this a descriptive or inferential question? But first, we need to actually see the question itself. And so students would read a question, and then they would be directed to look at the high-level decision. In this case, is this a descriptive or inferential question? Students generally would not know what this question means, so they come to the just enough, just in time instruction. And here's where they get just the information they need to learn the definition of each option, and then an example where we highlight the clues in the example that would suggest that this option, in this case descriptive, is appropriate. And we do the same with the next option, or however number options there are. Now let's go, as you can see, we can continue to move forward through the decision model with new questions, new just enough, just-in-time instruction, but always being able to see the problem, the research question, determine how to classify it. Students can even scroll down to see what the instructor's answer would be as they go along the way. Let's look at another example. This one is as a German course, and here's where we're learning proper greetings. And so the learner reads the scenario, and this way they begin to sort of conditionalize their knowledge, and meaning that they will determine what course of action to take and how to speak or understand what they're listening to based on the conditions on the ground. So here you have a scenario. It says you just started coaching soccer at a local high school, and an athletic boy walks up to you. So the first question is, do you know the person you're speaking with? And obviously from the clues in the scenario here, we may not need just enough, just in time. So in the clues would suggest that just walks up to you, you may not know them, so I don't know them. How old are you? Well, I'm a soccer coach, so I'm going to probably older than 18. Is the person you're speaking with older or the same age or younger? Most likely younger, because it's a boy. Is the person you're speaking with older or younger than 18? Well, we're in high school, so most likely they're younger than 18. And so then we ask which speech register is most appropriate to use, and here we learn the difference between see and do. And so the students go through this and get the just enough, just in time instruction they need in order to, in fact they even practice it. They practice see and do in a variety of scenarios until they figured out the difference, and then they make their decision, and then we can determine if they're correct. Now let's go to another decision model. This one looks a bit more complicated. This is a chemistry course, and so the learners, in this case we don't have an assignment, but you can imagine any chemistry problem can be put up above in this panel, and the instructor is still working on the just enough, just in time learning module. But as you can imagine, the student would look at any given chemistry problem, and the first decision is determine if it is a question of composition, structure, physical property or change, or chemical property or change. And so they look at the problem, they'll click on the just enough, just in time instruction that'll be there, and they learn the difference between composition, structure, physical property or change, or chemical reaction. And so they can determine which it is. Then comes the next question. Is the question asking for a reaction amount, a chemical formula, concentration, or information about an element? Once again, the learner will not know what these things are. They'll be saved by the just enough, just in time instruction. They'll learn the concepts as they're working through a problem. And they'll slowly, as you can see, this is a model that has not been completed. But in some cases, it'll ask questions like, do you need to calculate something? And if you need to calculate, let's say, an empirical formula, then there may come a point where you're taught here in the model how to calculate that empirical formula while you're dealing with a problem. And so I think this one will just keep on going, and several actions can be taken. Sometimes there will not be decisions, but actions that are taken along the way to get to a correct answer. The next example is a figurative language example. This one is different than our hard sciences that we've just seen. So here we start with a poem. This one by Edgar Allan Poe from The Raven. The excerpt here is, "And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before." So the student, this is for high school age, is asked the question, is this an example of figurative or literal language? Now they may think they know, and they may know, and if they do, they don't have to go to the just enough, just in time instruction, but if they don't, they can click here, and they can be taught the difference between literal and figurative language. So here's a definition of literal language, a definition of figurative language with examples below. And then they get to practice. Well, actually, there's a literal example and a figurative example. Now they get to practice. And so they get to see this or read this poem here, or this passage. And the question is this a passage literal or figurative? And they read, "She ran down the street, the green knee socks making her legs look like wild dandelion stems that had somehow lost their heads." And so the student will look at that and probably determine this looks like figurative language, but they're also given an explanation as to why. The girl's legs do not really look like dandelion stems. They're just thin with green socks on them. So the students are beginning to see the concrete examples of these concepts, literal and figurative, with explanations. And they can continue to work through the decision model and learn about these concepts. And I think we're probably on sound, and we're probably repetitive with those S's up there, and we're dealing with alliteration, and we haven't been, and it looks like it wasn't alliteration, maybe it's assonance, and okay. So much information to learn. No time to figure out what this is right now, but you get the idea that as students take more and more poems through this model, they will continue to reference the just enough, just in time instruction as they need to, and after a while they will not need to reference it, and it'll become more and more automatic. Here's an example from computer science, and we can take an assignment through here. So here would be just a simple assignment in a basic computer science class. They read it, and then they look at the high-level decision. Are there multiple parts to the problem? And then they're given just enough, just-in-time instruction that'll help them determine if there are or are not multiple parts. Then they make their decision. And next question, what is the input to the current part of the program you've chosen? They click the just enough, just in time, and they continue. Of course, I'm guessing here, but if I took time to really learn this, I wouldn't have to guess. And it looks like I'm not playing the odds here. But you can see all the concepts they're learning along the way. So here is one from a religion course. It's Teachings of the Living Prophets. And in this case, the students will read a passage from a church leader's talk, and then they will be given the just enough, well, they'll start with a question. Do you see, for example here, do you see an invitation or encouragement? And so they, through the how do I decide, they learn what that means. They look at examples, and they look at clues that they would find in the passage that would determine the type of, if there is an invitation or not. And then they would click on the next one, and then there is this, we have decision points, action points, but here's a reflection point. What are you invited or encouraged to do? How does this help you understand or apply the teachings? So here the students can be introspective, and in the future we'll have an ability for them to type their response. Then they go to the next strategy. Do you see a cause and effect statement or statement of promised blessings with conditions? So they click on the just enough, just in time instruction, and through that they learn about cause and effect relationships, and if they are present in a church leader's talk. And so we continue to work our way through. There's another reflection point. What actions are you told will lead to what result? How does this give you personal guidance? And now once again, they're taking the knowledge and it's getting deeper into their hearts as they consider the impact on their personal lives. And this, I think there's 9 strategies that the students learn, and they continue to go through different passages and learn the different elements in a church leader's talk while they're attempting to personalize them. A final example, this one comes from a communication disorders course, and you'll see there's a scenario up here. You're working as a clinician at Happy Valley Medical Clinic. Today you'll be seeing a new patient whose medical records have arrived from Happy Valley Hospital. You look over the discharge report and read the following section. So they read about that patient, and then comes the questions that an expert might ask. In what setting is the patient at this time? And so we determine through the how do I decide what are those different settings, and how do you know in a report which setting is most is relevant in this given situation. And so we're probably going to go acute care. Is the patient medically stable? So we'll proceed with the evaluation. Did the doctor nursing report any concerns regarding the patient's language? We would note there if that was the case, and we continue to work our way through the model. And so this probably might actually go down this particular route. But we can put images up here. There isn't an image here now, but we do have the ability to put images for learners to see. So these are the different examples of decision models across multiple disciplines. Thank you.